One of the more surprising updates. I say surprising. It didn't surprise me that it happened, and it didn't surprise me which was involved. It surprised me the timing because I knew that something was going to happen, but I wasn't really sure what. And just to kind of put in perspective, this has to do with Gate.io. And the reason I'm doing this coverage is because early on in the podcast, I advocated very strongly for Gate.io. I felt that of the various exchanges out there, it was one of the top. Now, I've since changed. I haven't used Gate.io in a while. Predominantly, the only reason I had to use Gate.io, there was a token, and I forget the name of it, but they did a change. They changed to a different token and did migration. I had like 500 trillion of this token out of a total quadrillion supply. So I had like half the supply when I bought it. Because when I bought it, it was low. It was on the decline, and I didn't realize it because the exchange didn't tell me that something was happening. They changed it. I believe it's called ABR. I can find it if I looked, but I don't care because when I looked at the replacement token was garbage. They had constrained the inventory. Then the migration was announced, and Gate.io said, "Yep, we're going to migrate." And next thing I know, I'm sitting on my value and watching it steadily decline for like 2 months. And then eventually they did the new token. But by that point, the new token had already crapped in value. Because if they had done the migration on time, that would have been like $2 million. I'm not kidding you. And it's why I was so pissed when this happened. So once that incident happened, the only remaining, I literally liquidated everything from Gate.io and moved it over out into a different exchange that I was using for exchanges. I used a different exchange. At that point, it was Hotbit. I'm pretty sure that I moved to. But I was still using Gate.io for Satama because Satama, for the purposes of what I was doing, was Gate.io was the easiest to use because the only other alternative for what I wanted would have been Hotbit or LBank. And I wasn't on LBank at that time. And then Hotbit, their withdrawal thresholds are garbage. Their fee thresholds are garbage. I'm not a fan of Hotbit. So I was using Gate.io predominantly as my Satama dumping ground. Like, think of it that way. And then I used from the wallet, I was able to use that to cash out profits through Gate.io. That's all I was really using Gate.io for after that fiasco with that token where they screwed me out of millions and millions of dollars. So I had predominantly stopped using Gate.io. However, recently, I want to say probably mid-February, I spun back up my mining equipment and I use unminable for the most part. And I was mining my Satama over to Gate.io. And you're like, well, I thought you don't like Satama. I said, I don't like the people. I never said I don't like the token. I love the token. I love the code. I don't like the people. The people are incompetent. The cult is terrible. And the guy who's in charge has tanked the project to the point that I didn't want to invest any of my cash towards this. So, but I can let my mining machine just dump, however much, a couple bucks every now and then. Because if you think about it, as it stands, my mining machine can generate anywhere between, depending on the pricing of the market, anywhere between $1.50 and $3 every day in just mining. Well, Satama's price went into the crapper. So now with unminable, you can get roughly 50 million to 100 million tokens every single day because of the price crapping out, plus the price of the market crapping out. So I said, okay, fine, I'll just go ahead and do that. And then the cash out threshold is like 700 million. Okay, so at previous, when Satama was jumping and spiking, it would have taken like 2 weeks to get this 700 million. Well, now you can get to 700 million for about a week out. So I was just doing that, and I did that a couple of times, and then there was a bull run with Satama, and I was able to cash that. I literally just sold it because there was no reason to keep it because I knew it was going to go in the crapper again. And got that, and that helped. I was able to buy a sandwich, which I didn't want to spend on the sandwich. I just used Satama to buy the sandwich. Well, I decided to go back to mining, and so I was mining to Gate.io. And the problem with unminable is that it's tied to a wallet address. Gate.io, the nice part about it versus other exchanges is that it gives you a wallet address that's yours, quote unquote, meaning it's not going to change. It's not like a hot wallet or a shared wallet like Coinbase uses. Coinbase has some dedicated wallets, but like your Bitcoin, for example, or your Ethereum, those wallets don't belong to you. What Coinbase did to figure it out is that even if you use a an older address, it'll still deposit to your account, but you don't trust it because you don't own it. With Gate.io, I don't own it, I don't trust it, but the address at least doesn't change to where I can make sure it gets there. Once I see it cashes out, then I can sell it or transfer it. So I was doing that, and then I got an email out of the clear blue that basically said, hey, you're violating terms and conditions, And I know I hadn't. The weird thing with Gate.io, they had a weird structure with certain tokens where they'll say, this token, it's not supported because you're in the United States, so we suggest you withdraw it within the next 90 days. Okay. But they didn't do that for every token. They didn't do that for Tron. I used it for Tron. I used it for BNB. I used it for Matic. I used it for all sorts of tokens. This is before I got on board with any other exchange. And they never gave the alert except when it was one of these one-offs. Like I think they did it for Floki and some others. So I just ignored those tokens. It wasn't that big of a deal. Well, now this email basically says, well, you're in violation of terms and conditions just because you're in the United States for the whole service, and we're going to shut it down unless you verify you're not in one of these countries. If you looked at the list of the countries, it's basically every country where the person's not subject to a extreme regime. Like, if you're in China was listed, US was listed, Iran was listed, like all these countries where there's some measure of freedom, it was listed. And so that got me thinking, okay, so what these jokers did is they said, we're just going to attack every single country that's in NATO, and we're going to just close their accounts out because we think NATO's going to do this to cryptocurrency. And it's their business. It's their country, the company. I can't tell them what not to do. It's up to them. And I'm not really panicked about it because, again, I had already liquidated. The challenge was unmineable. Now, unmineable has since, at first it was a problem, but they since created a manual process where they can take and redirect your mining stream, because previously it's just tied to the wallet address. Well, the wallet address is theirs. I didn't want to put it in my wallet because I don't want to pay the gas fees to get it out. I still don't even now. But gas has been much more reasonable as of late, which is ironic, but it's been much more reasonable. It's been like $20 here and there. So now I'm a little bit less picky about it than I was. And I did stockpile some gas on this most recent run because I had to get rid of my Para token because I was done with them. So that helped. And then I said, okay, let me redirect it to my private wallet where I had it before. Turns out there was still some reflections going in that wallet, which supports what Bleav was saying about the holder counts. And of course, Thomas holder counts probably being crap. But I got my unmineable redirected and everything's fine. So I'm done as far as Gate.io. I didn't need them for anything else. I was never sending anything more to them. But if you're in Gate.io and you haven't got that email, and if you're in a Gmail account, it might have gone to spam or something. Because I know when I had to do the code to cash out, I had to use a Gmail account because they don't support Outlook, which is a risk for me. So I used a throwaway Gmail account for the purposes of that. So if you're in Gate.io, you should have gotten that email by now, I would expect. And I had a couple people reach out on social media because they knew that my show, one of the main things I started with was coverage of the various exchanges. That whole methodology, the reason I did that is because I suspected that there was going to be these crackdowns. And if you heard me on the wallets versus exchanges, I specifically said that there's nothing stopping these exchanges from doing whatever. And fortunately, the vast majority of them, they'll work with you. They'll say, we understand and we got to give you some time to get your stuff out and It's not just about spot trades versus margin. Like in some, they'll say, yeah, you can spot trade. You can't do anything else. But in other ones, they literally say, nope, you just can't use the service. We're just blockading you out like Binance.com. This is what I saw as a precursor because of the executive order from the Biden administration. I think that was one of the triggers, was them seeing, and I said, and I was talking to people on social media, that I think that executive order is a precursor to them trying to lock it down and trying to ban it. Because what it's going to do is open up the doors for them to increase regulatory scrutiny on a lot of these orgs. And we can say that that's good because of the scams, but we have to analyze the downside. The downside is that many of these exchanges are not going to do that. Regulation by its very nature helps protect people, but often it's so onerous and so tedious and so costly. Many businesses, especially if they're working under slim margins, which some of these are, they're not going to play by those rules, especially if it's only the one-off countries that do it. So I suspect that the Gate.io decision is one of many. I suspect there's going to be others happening in the future. And I think we're going to get to a point where there's going to need to be some pressure put on the Coinbases of the world to stop playing their game and actually list the BNB token, because that's the main one, is the BNB token. They don't list that garbage. And so you have to go to one of these other ones to get the BNB token in order to invest in the Binance network. And there are other ways to get around it. The point is, I think until you have to if we're going to have this game where certain exchanges are being blockaded from being able to do business like they like to, we have to challenge those other exchanges to stop monopolizing as they're doing, like Coinbase does, where they're just picking and choosing what tokens they'll allow you to exchange. Like if I want to do stocks today, if it's a penny stock, yes, I'm blockaded out, but that's by higher level law. It's not like the exchange has any direct say in those. I think the same should happen in crypto. I think we shouldn't have where Coinbase can block me from trading a thing, if that's the thing, or any other exchange can just blockade me from trading a thing. We can go back to a world of descend completely. But in order to do that, we're going to need to break the bonds between fiat and debit cards and credit cards and purchasing of a thing to where I can purchase crypto without having to go through a bunch of hoops. Because at that point, you might as well be an exchange. Like right now, with MoonPay and Simplex and Banksa and some of the other ones that allow you to purchase through wallets, you have to go through those hoops. You have to waste a lot of time. Banks is a little bit less picky about it. But like I know MoonPay, for example, it's like, well, all right, let's go ahead and verify what's your name and what's your address and your social and collect all this crap because we're collecting money from you. I'm not saying it's bad to do that. I'm saying if you're going to force that, we might as well have exchanges. But the exchanges need to be allowed to conduct business and just simply provide a way for them to do what they're doing without forcing them out of business. Because that's what I think Gate.io is doing, is they're just saying, we just won't do business with these countries. It's not worth it because the regulations are going to be too much for us to comply with. And we see this executive order coming out, and they know what I suspect, which is that it's a precursor to them locking down cryptocurrency. I would love a world where we don't need the exchange at all by way of being able to buy and sell and transact cryptocurrency without needing the exchange to be able to do it in the wallet. But that means you're going to still need some sort of a middleman processor to translate crypto to fiat and vice versa. Because I don't think, as I mentioned in a past episode, we'll ever get to a world where we decouple fiat from the crypto. And until we can do that, the exchanges provide a necessary service. At what point do we say that it's a necessary service to where we don't allow the Coinbases of the world to discriminate against which coins they're going to carry and which ones they won't? And we say, if you're going to provide this function, you need to allow them to trade that cryptocurrency because you are providing this necessary service and there's nobody else to provide it. Otherwise, you're just going to drive everybody back underground. And I'm pretty sure that's not what they want. If you're really trying to get to a world where we embrace cryptocurrency, we need to figure out how the big players are not able to muscle the smaller ones out of the market. And we don't want people doing illicit trading of a thing because remember, that's where crypto started. And if we don't want to go back to that world, and I don't think they do, I think we need to do something better. For everybody listening, though, I summarize that if you were in Gate.io and you are in one of those countries, you're going to get kicked out of it at some point. And I suspect that other exchanges are going to follow suit. I don't know when. I suspect LBank at some point will follow suit. I'm pretty sure. I suspect Poloniex is okay because Poloniex is based out of United States or formed in the United States. I suspect KuCoin may or may not, because KuCoin doesn't care as much about the KYC, which is interesting to me. I suspect Hotbit will lock down. I think BigHex will lock down. I think MEXC will lock down. I think some of these other ones will eventually lock down. But I think they're kind of playing the field right now to kind of see what's going to happen before they commit to a decision. Ultimately, it goes back to me saying, don't keep your stuff in an exchange because you never can tell when something's going to happen. And until the governments, and I'll do plural, get their act together to where we are not allowing certain other exchanges to discriminate the way they do, you're going to be basically playing whack-a-mole, trying to figure out where to keep money. And then, of course, you got Janet Yellen trying to dig into your private wallet. I believe it's all strategic. I believe it's all a game to get to the point where they know every bit of transaction that you're doing and you have no privacy or anonymity. And they want to get it down to the select few exchanges that are perfectly happy to give up all your information at the drop of a whim. That's my theory. I don't mean to tinfoil hat you. At summary, I'm saying, for now, private wallet's going to be the best way to go if you're not doing transactions. If you choose to keep it in exchange, that's up to you. Just understand the risk. I suspect other exchanges are going to follow suit here shortly.